What if I told you that your side hustle might result in over 300 property transactions? My guest today, Anna Harper, spent her weekends in her 20s not chugging the Jägermeisters, but pounding the streets of Croydon in search of good property deals. Since then, she's become an investor, a consultant, a podcast host, and a writer who helps investors to make smart, sustainable decisions about individual homes. She has authored 3 books on property investment and is frequently quoted in the Financial Times, Forbes, and BBC on UK housing, investment, and sustainability. We talk about the power of process, the value of tenacity, the importance of remembering to ask for help, as we learn how she turned her side hustle into a success.
You'll spend 80,000 hours at work. You're here because you want those hours to count. Hi, I'm Zoe Schofield.
And I'm Erica Sosna. A warm welcome to the Career Equation podcast. On this podcast, we take time out from our award-winning careers consultancy to share a game-changing formula to help you solve the sum of your life.
Each week, we and our guests use the Career Equation to explore their story so far and help them unlock the secrets of a fulfilling career.
So, very warm welcome to you, Anna.
So great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Now, you're very deliberate about your career, which is quite unusual in the conversations that I have with people. Most of us kind of hobbled into something that sort of suited us. But I feel like your career trajectory was like relatively intentional. So can you give our listeners a little bit of an insight about what you do and how you got there?
Yeah, I'm glad it looks like that. I run Green Resi. I'm a property investor, as you said, and I'm a property investment writer. In terms of background, I basically spent the last 12 years in property and investment in some realm. Studied land economy at Cambridge, which gave me a little bit of an insight into real estate, but I didn't really know that much about actually the practicalities of investing. And I started my career at Deloitte as a strategy consultant, working with big banks and private equity firms. But I knew I wanted to do residential investment. So basically didn't have any money. So I was using my weekends and evenings to go down and find deals in the nearest regeneration area that offered a decent yield, which was Croydon. This is 2013 for context. And then going back up to the city and finding the money and putting those deals together. Did about 300 transactions so far, backed by private capital. And one to skip a few, co-founded Green Resi, which is a platform to help investors make smart, sustainable decisions about individual properties at scale. And along the way, I started hosting a podcast and wrote 3 books on residential investing, had a column in the Telegraph on property investment, and I chair the Cambridge University Land Society's residential forum. Essentially, everything I do is either about helping investors to make decisions, helping bring people together around residential investment, or sharing insights.
Brilliant. And that breadth, I think, it sounds like it's both an opportunity and sometimes a little bit overwhelming, right? You found your niche, you found the stuff that you love, but you're exploring lots of different forms to play with that and to see how you can add the maximum value. Does that feel right?
Just that there's a lot of different problems. And I think that when we come to my kind of career conundrum, I think we'll get onto that. But the market has changed a lot in that time. And that has been a big trigger for my business model effectively to change. And because I really love developing insights and sharing them and kind of sharing with a community of people, I get a kick out of that. So it's kind of come naturally to do that as my sort of passion project, I suppose, on the side.
Great. Well, so you found your place and you found the things that you love, but there's always new conundrums and questions to answer. So tell us what's brought you here today and what you're trying to get insight around that would be useful.
So you said to bring a conundrum I'm facing in my career. And I think that the problem I'm going to describe is not going to be original. I feel like it's something that a lot of amongst my friends and amongst others I know in the sector, I think a lot of people feel the same thing, which is deciding between 2 different directions. So for me, that is, there's the consumer focused part of the real estate market. So buy to let investors, the kind of investors that I started working with at the beginning of my career. And for example, they would be the people that would have read the column in the Telegraph, and they care about individual properties and the decisions around an individual property. And then there's the institutional corporate world, which is where most of my focus is these days. And they care about billions of pounds at a time, not tens of thousands of pounds at a time. And they care about strategies and they care about macro trends much more than the individual property issue. And the kind of problems that the 2 different sets of clients face are actually quite similar because it's all about navigating a challenging, fast-changing market and getting access
Mhm.
to great deals and knowing the right people and having good management and reporting infrastructure. And the solution is not that far different either, because it's generally, for me, the work I do in whatever form, in every form, basically, it is about helping investors to make informed decisions efficiently,
Mhm.
whether that's about their strategy, about their deals, about how to implement them. But the big difference is that the language is different and where they go for advice is different.
Mm.
Essentially, the challenge for me is there isn't enough time to focus on being the go-to for both markets,
Yeah.
which means I have to say no to one of them. And I feel a sense of fear around that, because what if I make the wrong decision? And I know this
Mhm.
is such an unoriginal problem, so I feel like other people will get it too.
Well, it's an extremely relatable problem, is that we only have the one life, but it'd be great to live 3 or 4 parallel ones to explore all the other interesting things that we might like to do. And I think also this idea of, you can speak to multiple audiences, but you can't do it as well as you want to do it with the time that you have. And I think that's a very relatable issue for a lot of people. So let's drill into that. And we'll drill into that using the 4 moments of the equation. But broadly speaking, let's just summarize. So, what the equation says is that when people are making career decisions, there are 4 components that over the last 20 years I found are kind of their most important buckets, if you like. And without a clear set of criteria, it can be really difficult in any area to make a good decision: an investment decision, a relationship decision, a work decision. So, what we try to do through this process is to help you to hear the criteria that matter most to you in 4 areas: the skills that you want to be using and growing in as an expert, the subjects or ways of being that you want to spend your time on all day long because you just love that stuff, the kind of impacts and results that make you feel successful in your career, and getting really clear about what success looks like for you right now and how you measure that. And then lastly, the kind of environments that support you to do your best work, whether that's the people, the process, the platforms, the opportunities, the autonomy, the geography, et cetera, et cetera. So how do we get to our criteria and get crystal clear around these 4 key areas? And on the back of that insight, then, what does that tell you about where and how to spend this time, or how to resolve letting go of one thing to take up another in a way that feels good to you, that you feel at peace with? So that's what we're going to use as our frame for exploration. And look, without further ado, let's dive into your first moment. So the first moment I ask people about is a time in their life where it became clear to them they had a real strength that was going to serve them. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is for you and a specific moment?
Yeah, so I think that my greatest strength is I've got a lot of grit and perseverance and a lot of energy, and I'm positive and proactive. And if I decide I want to do something, I will just get it done. Or I will usually find the people who can tell me how to get it done most efficiently and then follow their instructions. And I just keep going. So I think grit is my main strength. And I suppose I don't know when I realized I had that, but I know that I can see it looking back when I was writing a lot. So I wrote 3 books in, I think, 3 years alongside full-time job in the early 2020s. And I just got up early and did an hour before work and weekends, and, would do 3 hours on a Saturday or 5, or start by trying to do an hour on a Saturday and it ends up being like the whole day, because in writing I kind of get into flow and lose track of time.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
essentially the hard bit is the sitting down every day. And that I realized that I'm actually pretty good at getting stuff done.
And sort of off your own steam as well. That's what I hear. You don't need someone on top of you. You don't need a deadline. You just, are able to find that intrinsic motivation to get something done that's interesting to you.
I'm not sure if it's necessarily intrinsic, but the thing is that I enjoy the process of learning. I think if you enjoy a process and you can get your head around, you write, I don't want to use cuss words, but a thing called an SFD, which is your like silly first draft, let's call it, which any writer needs to get out. And the hard part is having the confidence to get that out, because usually the silly first draft is really rubbish. Mine are always really rubbish, but no relation to what ends up being published. But having the confidence to do that bit, I think the reason that I have that is because I enjoy the process, if that makes sense. And I get a kick out
Mhm.
of the light bulb moment that comes later where it's like, that's a way I didn't think about that problem, or that's a way of expressing the market issue that I hadn't thought of, but it's relatable and I can see that other people will understand that, or something like this. To me, there's a real kick out of that. And I think it's much easier to have grit if you enjoy the process.
There's so much good stuff here for anyone thinking of setting up a side hustle. Anna put some of the best practice there is into this game, and any of us can use this to make something from nothing. First, get one deal, one sale, then another and another. Test out your minimum viable product and keep going and refining, showing up day after day. You'll get better, you'll have more success, and you will become better known if you just keep going. That's how a side hustle eventually learns to take center stage.
I think that's really true. I was once told that the journey is the destination. And as someone who was like super goal orientated, it's all about the achievement and the results. I didn't even really understand the sentence when I first heard it.
Yeah.
But now, particularly writing is a really good illustration of the journey is the destination. The process in itself is the most interesting bit. The thing that pops out is almost sort of a byproduct of going through that process. But tell me, do you feel like that grit, that tenacity, that kind of work ethic, you were born with it? Do you feel like it was kind of influenced into you from folks around you? Where do you think it sits in your nature nurture dynamic?
Oh, I've no idea. Definitely not clever enough to answer that question. But what I do know is definitely, for me, there's a big part of it that is process related and people related. I don't think I would want to push myself in this way if there weren't people in my life where we kind of enjoy the results together. So, for example, like I have a really amazing mentor who I speak to every week. I've spoken to every week for, I think, 5 years now. I've known him since I was about 23 when I first got into property. And we speak really, really regularly. And we both kind of almost learn together. I also have mentees and have had mentees over the years. And to me anyway, like all of the things that I do are much more worthwhile when there are other people involved. So I think that essentially no man is an island, right? So there's that for energy. And then actually I've forgotten your question, but I think that kind of went some way to answering some of it. Oh, nurture.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know about that
one.
one, but I think that for me anyway, like having process and people in place today, because anyone can do anything if they have the right support and the right processes in place to some extent.
Yeah, I think it's a good bit of insight to go, the things we want to accomplish, we rarely do them by ourselves. But how often do we remember to ask for support and input from others instead of trying to head towards them in an individual way?
But like that's actually probably, maybe I should have answered this as my strength. I'm quite good at asking for help and giving help because I just like I don't have any shame around it. I think some people are, I have people who I like or love or work with who absolutely hate asking for help. And it doesn't really do them any favors. We are community animals and we're meant to help each other and we're meant to ask for help when we need it. I don't see it as a sign of weakness personally.
Great. And let's take, so we grit, bing, and we pop that into one box. Let's take a little look at the things that give you joy. So when I talk about passions, I'm really talking about times when you know that you love what you're doing and it just gives you that like energy and pleasure and enthusiasm. Can you give us a specific moment from your life where you were like, I can't believe I get to do this for a living, or I can't believe I'm in this particular experience?
Yeah, I lose track of time when I write or am developing ideas. And I remember, I used to go to a very specific hotel called the Stafford and write there on a Saturday, every Saturday. And I would go there for the hour and I would end like 6, 7 hours later, having not realized that the time had gone by and just having got through another draft of whatever chapter, section of the book, whatever. I found it a place and a time where I could really lose myself. And I think that flow is kind of, I don't know. I think to even have experienced that is kind of lucky because I think a lot of people struggle to find something they can lose themselves in and enjoy that much.
What is it that you think gives that ability to really sink into that effortless, engaged experience? Like what specific elements of writing or your writing process allow you to drop into that place?
That's a great question and not one that's super easy to answer because, it's all quite kind of meta. But I think the pursuit of expressing complex ideas in simple ways is kind of a challenge and opportunity that I get really excited by. And I love nothing more than being able to explain something that's really complicated in words that I know anyone could understand. Someone told me when I was writing my first book to aim for a reading age of 11, which is really hard. It's called
Yeah.
real estate because
Tough
we
gig.
pride
Yeah.
ourselves in real estate. We pride ourselves on like having essentially the only barrier to entry. There's this joke that the only barrier to entry is the language that we use, our many acronyms and
Uh-huh.
industry terms. That's the only thing that you can use to keep outsiders out. And I say that kind of tongue in cheek, but there is some kind of truth in it. There's a lot of technical jargon and it can keep some people out or keep them kind of almost intimidated. And it also sometimes discourages people from asking important questions because if you don't feel like you know enough to ask a question, like a stupid question, what does that mean? What do you mean by that acronym in a meeting? You can very easily miss really important risk areas. So it can actually be a problem. There's nothing I like better than being able to explain things that sound complicated on the surface in ways that anybody could understand.
Great. And that sort of a translation process and the relatability again sort of harks back to your connection with like people and community. You want to bring others along with you, have a shared understanding, support their education in ways that are really accessible. Great. Good stuff. Okay. So here we go.
Moment number 3 is about doing something that you feel really matters, that has some consequence. And this is trying to get underneath the kinds of drivers and motives for what makes work for you. So can you give us a specific moment in time in your career where you've been engaged in something and you're like, that is valuable?
Yeah. When we set up Green Resi, we had a vision. And the vision basically is the same as my personal vision, except our company vision was slightly bigger. But my personal vision is to help deliver 1,000 quality, energy efficient and affordable homes worth £250 million or more by 2028. And that includes delivering new homes and bringing unused and empty homes back into life. My bit, as I mentioned earlier, is about helping investors to make informed decisions in this space. And they can only do that when they can see that they're going to essentially deliver social value and also make a return safely. So having a vision that is both big and difficult kind of gets me out of bed in the morning. And I feel that it is important to continue doing this.
Yeah.
It's important to show up to work because 1,000 homes is a huge amount, but that's 1,000 households, 1,000 families, 1,000 sets of stories that would take place in a very different way if they did not have those homes. And you mentioned, the number of vacant and underused homes. It's well over 1 million. I know that at the moment in the UK. And, that's kind of a travesty when there's also a dire homelessness problem that is costing local authorities billions of pounds each year. And also meaning that the people who live in temporary accommodation because they're essentially homeless or vulnerable are just living a substandard, like they're not living in the way that in the quality that they could be living in. So there's a load of like really sad, really difficult aspects to this problem. And that makes solving it worth getting up for.
It also has the advantage of great tangibility. I really hear there's lots of layers for this. One is, do these homes that are energy efficient and sustainable exist? The second is, what stories and lives and people might be touched as a result of living their lives in those homes.
And of course, that sense of home in many ways is such a kind of profound and, animal sense in us, right?
Really fundamental, our safety, our security, our place to go to. And again, this theme of being able to address, in a collaborative way, because obviously this isn't something you're going to get done on your own, is coming through again of like, I'm part of something that made these two big differences. And when we talk about the part that you play, you talked about helping investors make informed decisions. What most facilitates that impact in terms of the role that you play? Is it your ability to persuade and engage and explain? Where does it come in, the kind of Anna piece of that puzzle?
The kind of investors that I work with care about numbers, they care about returns. They need to know that they're going to get paid for making an investment. They need to know that risks are minimized, which essentially means that the chances that they get the return and the chance that they lose money is very, very low. So they protect the downside. And they also need to believe in the story. That is kind of the easy part in residential because there is such a massive market problem. There's a huge shortage of homes of the right kind in the right places that people can afford to live in. And that need is not going anywhere. Our population is growing, the number of households is growing, and the supply of new homes is not growing anywhere near as fast. So the story there, the needs-based demand, is relatively easy to get their head around. Being part of solving that, I think that narrative is, Green Resi as a tool was about numbers primarily, and translating the narrative into numbers that can be understood across portfolios and managing those numbers well. But actually, the narrative is the really important bit. The story is the really important bit. Are you helping solve an urgent social problem and an urgent environmental problem?
Yeah.
And I guess that's where the combination of grit and the ability to translate the complex into the simple is going to be a crucial element for how you leverage that result and gather people around solving that challenge. So let's take environment now, because environment is all about this idea of where and how you do your best work. And I think it's an interesting one for you because you've had the big four, you've worked on your own, you've worked in other people's organisations, you've worked as sort of individual arbitrator, mediator, deal maker, and also part of big media organisations.
So there's evidently a versatility there. And I'd like to pick up a little bit on what you've learned from all those different environments. But before we do, let's flip it round and talk about if there was ever a time where you felt like the environment did not support you in spite of that versatility that's sort of innate to you.
Yeah, I've worked in environments which were not really conducive to my version of effectiveness, productivity, however you term it, which were typically environments where essentially overworking is promoted. I basically know about myself that I don't get more productive after hour 6 of the day. So I've got 6 hours of productive work in a day and the rest of it is slow. So I try not to beat myself up if I have to sit down on my desk for 8 hours for something. I know that the last 2 hours aren't going to be productive. But I think that in some work cultures, being seen to be at your desk for a long time or for a long time is part of the culture and seen as desirable. I think that's absolutely fine if you're honest about the fact that you're not going to be productive all that time. But anyway, I've burned out in the past and it was so catastrophically awful that I just kind of feel like as I've got older, I've been less willing to worry about what other people's work-life boundaries are and a bit more focused on, all right, well, I know my limits. And for example, now if I present at an event that I know that I'm going to be really tired that evening and then the next day. So I try to work from home the next day because I just know that I get exhausted. But it didn't always, basically, a long roundabout way is I don't think all of the environments I worked in had that encouragement to look after yourself for the sake of your own effectiveness.
Yeah. I don't even think it was a language for it until about 5 years ago. I know that similarly, it's taken me a while to really understand that I'm a bit more of a sprinter than a marathon runner. And that's okay. That there can
Sprinters
still
need rest though, right?
Absolutely. Sprinters need rest. And also, sprinters get incredible results in small spots of time. So yeah, that kind of, presenteeism, long hours culture, you might have people sitting there, but that really may not be their design. They may not be marathoners, but they still may be incredible performers. So I think even having that language of respecting and understanding one another's rhythm and being able to have a dialogue around that is quite new, isn't it, within the workplace, I think. And it is, again, a sort of great advantage of designing your own working agenda and sort of a rhythm for the week.
With all the recent talk about RTO policy, as in return to the office, I think Anna's comments here are useful for all managers and leaders. Just because someone is in the office, it doesn't mean that they are present or effective. Genuine hybrid working is about finding the best environment in which to do each piece of work to the best level you can, and that might be the office or home or anywhere in between. Giving your people permission to make this judgment, creating offices that they want to spend time in, being flexible about your core hours, and also understanding that not everyone is productive for the length of the entire working day can help you to put tasks and not time as priority, and therefore get the best out of everyone.
I'm interested in the fact that you have managed to thrive in a variety of different environments. And I wonder if there is any common ground when you look across those that supported you to be at your best, sort of, culturally, levels of variety, speed, pace. Like, what do you know about your ideal sort of soil to thrive in?
To me, anyway, the best bit is the people. And as long as there is a person or are people that for me I find inspiring and want to be more like and want to learn from, then to me that's the secret sauce of, will I want to get up early and go into work, into an office or into whatever. It depends whether it's you mentioned a couple of the different things I've done, but getting up to do those things to me is all about, am I working with people who I find inspiring or interesting?
Great. So people really foundational. Anything else about, I get a sense that like perhaps variety, breadth, like works quite well for you, and sort of space and opportunity to collaborate is sort of a seesaw. Can you tell me a little bit about how those things operate within your system? Do you like variety? Is variety important, or are you more towards executing on kind of narrow focus and getting that done?
I like variety and I also like rhythm and structure. So, for example, one of the things that's worked really well for me has been when I have been self-employed or in small organizations, having someone outside of that organization or someone inside of that organization that I speak to every single day. And we talk about things like, what did you do yesterday? What are you doing today? Are there any bits that you're struggling with? How can I help you overcome your challenges? And then the other way around. So I've kind of done a little stand up with one other person, whether that be my business partner or someone outside the organization. And that's always been one of the best things that I've ever done. And when I can't do that, I do it on a weekly basis or a monthly basis with kind of accountability buddies as well as my mentor.
Yes, I love that. I think stand-ups are so brilliant, aren't they, for just clarifying, I am making progress. This is my intention, and just being able to hear and support and witness for somebody else as well.
Or not, right? Because the first thing I do if I'm like secretly scared of doing a thing is hide it under the carpet. But if I've already told someone about it and I've told them what I think the challenges are going to be, I can't hide from it. I can't procrastinate anymore. So it just forces me to get over myself.
Yeah.
For the sake of the greater good.
Brilliant. I love that. And I think that's something really applicable that other people could really pick up on and make happen. So thank you for sharing that. So let's see if we can put all of this together into a format that might give you that kind of laser clarity and then help us dive into the question a bit more. So we're going to formulate your equation. The good news is the first gap I ask you to fill in is purely your name. So you can't possibly get this one wrong. So you're going to start with Anna.
Hi, Anna.
Great. We'll use my skills in. And now we're sort of listening in to the things that you've sort of taken away from the discussion already. What are those top 2 or 3 killer skills that you want to capitalize on in work right now?
We'll use my skills in communication, analysis, and grit.
And my passion for, this is where the energy comes from, my passion for.
And we'll use my passion for creating content, communicating ideas, and helping people to make decisions.
Can I add the word simply into communicating ideas?
Yeah.
Simply. Yeah. And it might be that we put that into the impact bit, but let's go for the third part 2. And this is then, what are the results that you generate? So we've got, Anna, will use my skills in communication, analysis, and grit, and my passion for creating content and communicating ideas simply. And you put then helping people make, but I wonder if that is your 2, actually, in a way. So what else would you add as kind of the result that you generate?
To help deliver 1,000 homes that are quality, energy efficient, affordable by 2028.
Beautiful. And tell me about the environment that's going to support you. I know that interesting, inspiring people have got to be in there. So I'm just going to write that down straight away.
It's people and process, right? Interesting, inspiring people and a process that encourages daily progress.
Yeah.
Celebrates learning rather than criticizing. Basically, we need to celebrate failure. We need to celebrate like bumps in the road, because there are going to be bumps in the road.
Inevitable. Yeah. So Anna, will use my skills in communication, analysis, and grit, my passion for creating content and communicating ideas simply to help people make great decisions and help deliver 1,000 homes. 28. Environment that is filled with interesting and inspiring people and quality process that encourages progress and celebrates learning works best for me.
Love that. Sounds great.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
Any fine tunes you would make? Is there anything when you hear it back, is there anything where you go, not so much, or I'd like to hear more of?
No, it sounds good to me.
Great. We've got a good, solid first draft. And if we were going to score how well you're living that, how aligned you are with that at the moment, on a scale of 1 to 10, from not at all to absolutely fandabidoozy, where are you?
7?
Great. So good, solid in the zone. And if we were going to take it up 1 or 2 points, what do you think is the shift? Which of those things needs a dial turn up a little bit or a refinement?
Probably the rhythm, the work environment. I mean, but
Mhm.
the work rhythm. So we're currently working very closely with one particular organization, and we're exploring ways to align our strategies. And I think that at the end of that exploration, there's a kind of
Mhm.
slightly different rhythm, which we'll talk about on next time I come on.
Yeah.
But I think that there is, that's almost inevitable, but like in any kind of transition period,
Yeah.
there is, by definition, it's a transition. And so I think optimizing for getting all the things that really I love about the work
Mhm.
environment, getting them, making sure that they are kind of almost in place no matter what, I think would be dial it up to 8 or 9.
Wonderful. So there is something just about the nature of the environment at the moment is quite in flux, and the rhythms and rituals work really well for you to feel high performing. And because of the flux, you need a little bit of time for those to settle down. You know how to do them and you know what you need. They're just not quite ready to embed yet because everything's a little bit too dynamic. So the good thing about that is that move up to 8 or 9 is actually a relatively easy thing for you to do. It's just a matter of timing, isn't it? And the people being in place to support you. So, given that, what now becomes clear about the focus of your attention on B2C and B2B? How has hearing back to yourself your career equation helped you to refine your thinking about the choice you need to make here?
Honestly, I think the most helpful thing, because even before we started record, I had a hypothesis about what the answer on this thing is. I think that the work we've done supports that hypothesis, which is that right now, really the thing to do is to focus on the institutional investors, which is the market that's growing rather than the market that's shrinking. Although I think it's possible to run a great business in both, but not at the same time. And so to me, the kind of real gem in all of this is essentially like reiterating that the more I commit to a single path, a single client type, a single transformation, the easier it is to put in place those other things, like a reason to get out of bed in the morning, like an objective, a goal, a vision, and a work environment that sets me up for success. For example, the daily rhythm of a stand up. I have more energy to focus on those things if I'm not worrying about making a decision about who to serve. So to me, essentially the conclusion is it's totally the right thing to commit to one path and say no to others. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And, given that you're someone who set up 300 deals and someone who enjoys the speed of progress, who enjoys seeing the tangible aspects of her work, that in a way that, forking the road slows you down. I have this kind of image of like Roadrunner, Roadrunner does best when he kind of zooms down like one street. If you take him to a fork, he's going to go and stop and
I think
look in
that's
both directions. Yeah. And not get, and lose his momentum. The thing that really makes sense. And the other thing that struck me was that, while you are staying focused and on purpose and on point around speaking to your investor audience and achieving that goal, which is not far away now, there's nothing to stop that, if things come in where someone else has generated a request saying, could you come and speak at a conference? Could you come and, do some thinking here? That you can still feed that a little bit, but you're not generating it. So you can still get that kind of the joy of like serving the public or speaking direct to landlords or sharing your insights. I don't know, popping on someone else's real estate fast or whatever, but keeping the trajectory of like your best energy, your best time and your best rhythms towards your primary goal.
I think that's a really, really helpful nuance as well, because as you said, it's almost like the proactive effort needs to go in one direction and the business development process, for example, goes in one direction. But then like someone asks you to do a thing, and we talked about it before. One of the things that frustrates me about the industry I'm in is terrible representation and diversity. Terrible. And I care about that, but I also need to focus on, you can't commit to all of the causes. So to me, it's always been it's been another one of the same thing I described earlier, where it's like, well, I care about both of these causes, but actually one doesn't have to choose between the two. It's just that like the proactive energy goes into delivering another 1,000 homes. And as a part of that, I will do anything that I can where there's an opportunity, for example, to help women get better representation in this industry, because that is lacking.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Career Equation podcast.
Stay connected with us on socials for more career insights, behind-the-scenes moments, and updates on upcoming episodes. And if you'd like to work with us, visit the Career Equation website or click the links in the show notes.
Remember, the Career Equation isn't just a podcast, it's a journey towards unlocking your full potential, enjoying your life, and doing remarkable stuff.
Until next time, keep solving those career equations and pursuing your path to success.
And don't forget to share your thoughts and feedback with us. Your input shapes the future of our show.
Until next time, keep solving those career equations and pursuing your path to success. This is Erica Sosna
And Zoe Schofield. Signing off.